If you find real happiness and joy within yourself, because it starts with you, it will shine out and your life will be just so fulfilled.
That's what a powerful presence is. And it's so unique and individual to each person. So the ZenRed method is much more about a process of discovery.
If we are an adopted person, wouldn't you be so curious about your own genetics? If you're an adopted pet, as a pet parent, it's really something you should do.
We have these sensors that go around your ear. And so essentially they look like a pair of everyday headphones, or you can actually use in-ear devices that look like earbuds. And then they record your brain activity.
I'm Richard Gearhart.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart.
And you just heard a few comments from some of our guests. We've got a great show. And stay tuned for more Passage to Profit. I'm Richard Gearhart.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the show that's all about entrepreneurism, innovation, and the intellectual property that helps it flourish. Tonight on our show, we have the marvelous Marci, who hosts the show Wake Up with Marci, and she'll be a fascinating guest. After that, we'll have Nikol Rogers, who is an empowerment transformation coach and actress, and we are definitely looking forward to talking with her too.
And then we have Skaya. I have to ask you, have you ever wondered where your cat came from? Well, I'll probably never answer that question, but
we have 3 cats and I wonder where they came from all the time.
She can help you figure out what their genetic makeup is. Very cool product. And then Dr. Ramses Alcaide with Neurable. So Ramses is going to help us figure out how to use our brains to control objects, which is very cool.
You've been controlling my brain for years.
Is your brain an object? Anyway, on we go.
It's my second favorite object. So anyway, but before we do that, it's time for IP in the news. So what's on the calendar for this evening?
Well, since Dr. Ramses came, we thought that we should try to find a mind control patent, which we did. Honda filed a patent for a motorcycle that you can control with your mind, some aspects of it. I don't think it helps you balance.
So, that sounds really safe for some reason. I mean, motorcycles are nutso to begin with. And to be like steering it with your brain. I mean, well, like what if you look over to the side? Does the motorcycle like veer off the highway or?
So the system includes a brain machine interface. It's in the helmet, I think.
Do you have to shave your head and then put a little chip in there?
Well, what was interesting though, when I was looking, this actually came from Simon Hancock's. He did an article last year and on visordown.com. But when I was looking for this patent application, because it hasn't issued as a patent yet, there are a lot of patents and patent applications for using your mind to control devices. And a lot of them are from China.
Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, no offense to our Chinese listeners, but no, they really are moving ahead very quickly in the technology area. And so that is pretty interesting factoid. So the picture on the patent shows the driver doing a wheelie. So can you imagine just thinking wheelie and then the front of your motorcycle jumps up? I mean, that's just actually incredible technology if it really works.
Well, so this article says the wacky idea is not that you think left and the bike steers to the left. It's more about changing the bike's settings and assistance system. So it's safer than you thought.
Oh, okay.
Neural sensors in the helmet pick up the stream of thoughts from the rider's brain, and it goes to the bike's onboard computer. And says, oddly for Honda, the patent mentions some pretty extreme and illegal in most regions riding maneuvers such as wheelies, stoppies, burnouts, and drifts.
Whatever those are.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, that's just the way the world's going, I guess.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Google and Facebook control our lives already. Why not have other devices? I'm sure they're all hooked into the internet and
right. I mean, there are programs that can see where your eyes are on the computer screen and how long you leave them on where you're supposed to be looking, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So, anyway. All right. With all of that, it's time for Richard's Roundtable. And we'd like to ask our guests to comment on what they just heard, or if you have a general question about intellectual property, we'd be more than happy to address that. So Marci, welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
Hi, so great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And so what do you think about this mind-controlled motorcycle stuff?
I just have to say, I'm trying to wrap my mind around that.
Good one.
Honestly, I'm trying to figure out how that really works. Like, I mean, in your mind, you say, okay, bike on. And then if you're riding it, then all of a sudden, like in your mind, you say off and it goes off. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. It's crazy to me.
Well, I will probably never use it because motorcycles terrify me. So
yeah, and obviously, if you can do it for a motorcycle, you can do it for a lot of different machines, right? So
yeah, I mean, it obviously is something that's, it's introducing itself. It's going to be our future, but we just have to adapt and learn, just as we have with everything else.
Exactly.
So great comment. So Nikol, what are your thoughts?
Well, if the rider of the bike is a meditation practitioner, maybe a Zen Buddhist monk or something, then I think it would be perfectly safe. And we could know that the motorcycle is going to do no harm and flow with the traffic and create joy for everyone. But until there is a wider agreement that we need to work on our minds, then this, I think, could present a lot of problems.
So, well, I was just going to say the opposite, because there are some of us who are mindless. And so if you are mindless, then what happens, right? You can't control the motorcycle, right? So, but I see your point. If you're in the flow, then you may have a very smooth ride.
Okay, let's
all right.
Going.
All right. All right. Anna, please tell us what you think.
I am so excited we're talking about this because, and I might blow your mind now, there are now cat ears that are controlled by your brain. So imagine the same kind of helmet that you're wearing to control this motorcycle, but instead they're cat ears. They're called brainwave cat ears. They've been around for a long time. I want to say 5 years at least. I first heard from a friend in China about them. I have a pair. They do work. So the ears move based on my thoughts. So I can think sad thoughts and the ears fold. I could think excited thoughts and the ears open. And I'm just so thrilled to be bringing my cats into this conversation about brainwaves and motorcycles. It's amazing.
I want those. That would be a good Christmas present for me. Okay.
So we had, so these are cat ears that you wear, or they're cat ears for your cat?
No,
they're cat ears that you wear, and they can read your brainwaves. I mean, the ears are pretty close to your head, and they move based on what you're thinking, and they do work.
I don't need my grumpy hat anymore.
Yeah, you can
you
just
could
put
do
on
grumpy
your sad
ears.
Yeah, we both have grumpy hats, so when we're mad and don't want to talk to each other, we put on our.
Don't talk to me right now.
We got some caps with crabs when we were in Maryland, and so if you have the crab hat on, stay away. But
I feel like next time I should just bring my ears and do the show with the ears on.
That would be awesome, actually.
I'd be down for that. I imagine this has like 1,000 uses, right? I mean. Okay, so now we want to hear from Dr. Ramsey. So please tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think my thoughts are probably going to be a little bit more conservative, not as mainly because I work in the space, so I really understand the technology, understand the patent. It really talks about features that have to do with customization of the motorcycle and less so control. So imagine you're a motorcycle driver, you have this helmet on. It's dangerous to switch the music while you're driving. It's dangerous to do all these kinds of actions, right? And so it's not necessarily saying that we want to tell the motorcycle to move to the left or to the right, but what if we could change the music, change the volume, really increase the safety of the driver while they're on top of the actual motorcycle itself? And helmets are really great devices to put brain sensors on because they already go on your head. And so to me, it seems like a really great natural application. we're never going to get to the crazy sci-fi of controlling your motorcycle in real time with your brain using sensors that don't require surgery. And so this seems like a really great everyday application for a brain-computer interface.
Well, thanks
From the expert.
I was going to
Yes.
say, thanks for bringing us down to earth, because
Yeah.
when you put it that way, it sounds marvelous.
Okay, so
It's a little bit less exciting, but it's like, I think it's going to be exciting once people use it and they're like, wow, this is a lot easier for me to, turn on my blinkers or to, change the music, and like, oh, I went to the radio station I wanted and I didn't have to scan it manually, right? Because that's really dangerous when you're on a motorcycle. And so
Yeah.
just that everyday value is going to be immense for a lot of people.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. And we look forward to hearing more about this type of technology later in the show. Kenya, what are your thoughts?
Well, I can't top that. But what I will say is, for someone like me who has a little bit of attention deficit, I don't know if it's a good idea. Right. I feel like I have a million thoughts going on, and I don't know if it would be beneficial for me. And I want to just say the originator of programming brain neurotransmitters was Peter Pan, because he taught people how to fly based on their thoughts. So I want to say, I think he highly influenced this patent.
Well, that's
Absolutely.
absolutely. So
So
thank you
funny.
for ending on that note. And so it's time for us to take a commercial break. We'll be right back with more Passage to Profit. Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit. We have such a fantastic show for you this evening, and I am pleased to announce that we have the marvelous Marci Hopkins on our program this evening. And she's a TV personality. She's a host. She has her own show on WLNY TV. Wake Up with Marci. It's on 10 a.m. and we've caught the show more than once, and it's great programming. So welcome to the show, Marci.
Thank you so much. And I think I may use that, Marvelous Marci. That's going to be my new name.
Yeah. Well, you can get a trademark on it.
I like that.
If you know where to go. So
Yes.
I love it.
So tell us a little bit about your career. You're really, to have your own show on television is an accomplishment, and I know you've been on for a while. And so there may be other people who are interested in sort of following that path and building that career. What kind of advice would you give to them? And maybe you could tell us a little bit about your own story that demonstrates some of the things that you had to go through to get to where you are.
Well, I could be here all day now, but let me say this as quick as I can. First of all, I've always worked in television. I just love the creativity and the industry. But I used to work behind the scenes. And when I was about 40 years old, I got in front of the camera. I decided to go for a passion that I had when I was a teenager. And I started with commercial print, commercial acting, that moved into indie films and such. It got to be a little too much, because I will tell you, in the modeling and acting world, it takes a lot of time. And I was a mother, still a mom, but a mom of two young children at the time. So having to go into the city for auditions, having to be available last minute, it took a real toll on me. And so I took some time off, and some things occurred, and I met someone that had a studio. I was going to help him get some people into his studio, and it came up about a talk show. And that seed was planted for me. And I was like, okay, instead of getting guests and sponsors for this talk show, why can't I have my own talk show? And it was something that stayed with me. And at that time, it was when Facebook Live was getting really popular. So this was about 5 years ago. And I decided to just launch on Facebook Live and start interviewing entrepreneurs. So I ended up having a social media talk show called Coffee with Marci. I interviewed entrepreneurs and nonprofits in the community, gave them a voice in the community, and it took off, and it was awesome. And it was really needed. But I knew that I wanted to do something more because I myself am a sexual abuse survivor. I just celebrated 6 years of sobriety. So I started living this life just beyond my dreams, and I wanted to give that back. So that's when I launched Wake Up with Marci. We're talking about just about 3 years ago. And I wanted to share stories of hope and hardship so I could help people to get through everyday scenarios that we all get through, that you don't have to collapse in that. So I wanted to share hope. And that's where Wake Up with Marci was born, and was about waking up your subconscious. And so during this, almost 3 years, the show has grown tremendously. Now, Coffee with Marci was where I started. So I started literally with an idea and my phone. So I just want to say that you don't have to start a business with everything being perfect. What you do need to start a business with is passion. And if you know that there's something that you want to do or change in this world, then you can do it. And you just need to go for it. And that's what I did. And I continue to learn and fail. And you can't be afraid of failing, and you always need to continue educating yourself. I used my past experience, but I also had to learn a lot. I had to learn all about social media. I had to book my own guests. I have to do my own writing. I was producing my own shows. It's all my own idea. I mean, this is what I love, and the mission behind it, making a difference. And that's just what I've stayed with. And now here I am every Saturday morning on a CBS owned affiliate, WLNY, every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I'm now writing a book, and I'm just really trying to make a difference in people's lives. And that is with stories of hope, celebrity inspiration, education, and resources so we can move forward in our lives.
Wow.
That's excellent. I think that part of your success is due to the fact that you found something that people really want. So like you can invent a new way to sit on a chair, but nobody's going to use it. Right? So, but I think that you also have to think about that. Like,
what?
I couldn't think of anything else, but people have to think about that when they're coming up with an idea for something. It has to be something people want. And I think you do, especially with what you're doing, have to be incredibly passionate about it.
You do. And I just want to say that I am now working on an invention. My prototype's almost done, and it's called Carcentials. This was an idea that I had literally 13 years ago when my daughter was 2 years old. And I had someone come on my show. So this is just saying, when someone comes into your life, she helps people with inventions. I told her about my idea, and here I am 13 years later, and my prototype's being done. So you don't need to give up on a dream or an idea that you've had. Just wait for the universe and for the right people to come into your lives, and you can make it happen.
Wow, that's great. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for patience, because there's everybody is sort of wants to get everything done or achieve everything as quickly as possible. And really, I think success is just a matter of being patient and, also being driven, but also just knowing that the time for it will come when you're ready for it and the world is ready for it. So
that's exactly right. And you do need to be patient. Don't give up too soon. Enjoy the journey, right? Like we want so quickly, but it really doesn't work out that way. So we need to be patient and enjoy and just keep striving for what we want. It'll come.
So you have a book coming out. Do you have any thoughts about where you want to take your show next?
Well, I'm actually working on a reel right now because I want to take my show national. I want to start helping people on a broader basis. I actually am now being interviewed nationally on ABC, NBC, and Fox as a recovery expert. So I am taking my voice nationally to help other people and my experience. And so I hope that my book will just continue to further my mission.
Well, did you feel like, since you bring up recovery expert and you mentioned the abuse and the alcohol, you were numbing yourself with the alcohol.
It was coping. Yeah, it was all about
Yeah.
coping. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you break that cycle?
Well, it took a long time. So how did I listen? Life was just crumbling around me. Like, I coped for a long time with alcohol. I started drinking like when I was 12 years old, when my abuse started. And I was able to function right throughout my life with alcohol. Yes, things happened. But I was able to have a place to live, have a good job. Everything always looked good. It was just really what was happening on the inside. So towards the end, my acting actually had a big part in elevating my drinking, because I was using alcohol as liquid courage. And also I was going through perimenopause, and it just was causing a lot of issues in my life, and my drinking elevated. And it just got to a place where life was, it was falling apart, and I knew I had to make a change, and I didn't want to lose what I had. And you have to admit to yourself first, you can't do it for anyone else. It has to be for you. And everyone has a different low point where they're going to hopefully stop and seek the help that's out there, because there's so much help.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people increase their alcohol intake during quarantine, right? So
Yes.
Yeah, during
Yeah.
COVID, I think
Yeah.
I've heard that from a lot of people.
So we're all kind of trying to heal from that now.
Yeah. And it's just like, there's a fine line between that bad habit and addiction. So just understanding that if you have an addiction, you do not have the capability of making the choice to do it or not to do it.
Interesting.
Very good. Kenya, you must have a question or two.
I do. So first of all, I want to say you were born to be on TV. You have the look, and you're a beautiful lady. And I just
thank you.
commend you, like, for your journey and what you've gone through. How would you say some of the traumatic experiences that you've had have helped your show?
Well, because I can relate, that has really helped me. I've done a lot of healing through my experience through the 12-step program. And I've broken a lot of cycles, bad cycles. I've changed my mindset. And, whether it's trauma, or you're going through grief, or going through recovery, or mental health issues, whatever it may be, I can relate. And I think that really helps for me to connect. And when I'm having the conversation with my guest, I am able to share my story along with them. And it's a bonding experience.
That's great. And so you're talking about hope. Where do you find sources of hope? And how do you help give hope to your audience, and kind of do that every week?
Well, first of all, I just want to say there is so much hope out there, and sharing your story gives so much hope, and it helps you to recover. Whether you're sharing it on a television show, or you're sharing it with a close friend or your therapist, this helps you to recover. And when you're sharing your story, it helps someone else to feel safe in maybe sharing their story too. And when you start sharing your story, that's when your recovery journey begins, your healing journey begins. And how do I spread hope? It's through the stories and the inspiration of the guests that I have that come on, and they are willing to share their stories and be authentic in their truth. You can go online, you can go through all of the different avenues that are out there right now. and find a group that can help you. Go on Facebook, something you're going through, you can relate to someone, find a group, find someone that can help you and build that hope and change within your body and within your life.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you're being so open about your struggles and how you overcame them, because when people look at you, as Kenya said, you are a gorgeous woman. You look like your life is completely together, like you never had a care in the world, right? And we know that everybody struggles with things at some time or another. And so to look at somebody who looks like you and so poised and say, wow, look at what she had to go through. It does give hope that other people can go through it. We might not look as good at you as you on the other side, but at least we can be doing a lot better than we are now for struggling, right?
Listen, I think that if you find true happiness from the inside, it shines out. So, we all are beautiful in our own right, and we should never compare ourselves to anyone else. But I just want to say, if you find real happiness and joy within yourself, because it starts with you, it will shine out and your life will be just so fulfilled.
So do you meditate every day?
I love meditation. That has helped me tremendously. When I was starting my healing journey, that's what I found. I found meditation, and the 12-step program also encourages meditation. And I would encourage anyone out there to do it. I know that it's hard, and a lot of people say, I can't quiet my mind and this and that, but you start small, right? It's just like anything else you build up. If you're exercising, you got to build your muscle, right? So this is a muscle you have to build and an exercise that you have to build. And YouTube offers so many different meditations, and there's also a lot of apps out there that help.
Wow. Well, that's fascinating. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. And again, you can find Wake Up with Marci right now on WLNY TV, and she's on at 10 a.m. in the morning.
But soon to be national.
I was just going to say, I really hope that we see you every morning all across the nation.
Thank you.
You're delivering a great message and inspiring a lot of people.
And what's the name of your book?
Chaos to Clarity.
Chaos to Clarity.
Yeah.
When do you think that's going to be published, or do you know yet?
I'm hoping the latest is March of next year.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
We'll be looking for that too. So I hope you can stay on with us for the rest of the show, and we'll be right back. This is Passage to Profit, and you're listening to Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, our special guest, marvelous Marci Hopkins, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Passage to Profit, of course, Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart here, and we just had the most incredible interview with Marci Hopkins, and unfortunately, she had an emergency during the taping and had to leave us, even though she wanted to stay with us for the program, and it has to do with a member of her family. So we released her from her Passage to Profit servitude, and it's time now for Nikol Rogers, who's going to be talking about empowerment and transformation. She's a writer, a coach, and she founded the ZenRed Method in 2015. So I'm really curious to hear about the ZenRed Method. So Nikol, welcome to the show, and tell us what it's all about.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here with everybody. And I feel like in order to talk about the ZenRed Method, I need to explain actually how it even came into being, and really how I came into this work. And I love to share this story because I feel like it just gives that real background for people to understand what the heck I'm even talking about. So my first career was as a performer. I had a 20-year career in New York City, and a musical theater performer and choreographer. And I moved to the city and I was working right away, but I noticed that over time, I really hit a ceiling. So there's a few industries, I'm sure your listeners can relate, that seem to have a lot of rejection, much more rejection than other industries. And the arts is definitely one of them. And while I was taught to be a really fantastic triple threat, I certainly was not taught any tools around my mind, going back to the motorcycle comment. So basically what was happening was there was a lot of rejection, but I didn't have any tools to deal with it. So what was happening was I was really identifying with my results, meaning if I got the show, if I got the audition, then I was good enough as an artist, but it was turning into I was worthy as a person. And if I didn't, then the converse. And so there was really this massive roller coaster that was going on. And so what happened was it became almost a joke, I'll be honest, where with the exception of 2 Broadway shows that closed before I would have joined them, when it came time for that moment to deliver, to give my best, I would just choke. And I didn't know, I couldn't figure it out. And it was all this like crazy overactive inner critic. And so I ended up basically hitting every single piece except for Broadway. I was in New York City Rockette, national tours, national commercials, except for the thing that I moved to New York for. And then in 2013, which I call my year of the flame, pretty much everything I knew of my life went up in a ball of smoke. And in 1 year's time, I went through a devastating divorce after being married for 15 years and trying to have a family. I was in 2 car accidents. I was robbed and I lost a dear friend to a heart attack. And for the first time in my life, I asked for help. And I had this voice that came up in my head as you were talking about meditation before. And it came up the day after my ex dropped the bomb, which was right in the middle of the holidays, because that's what the holidays do, right? They bring everything to the surface. And it said, you need meditation. And I remember thinking at the time, yeah, that would probably be a really good idea, considering it looks like I'm about to lose everything. And so this journey towards seeking meditation actually took me to Buddhism, which was like this complete surprise. I was like, wait, I thought I was looking for tools around my mind, not Buddhism. But you know, it's like when you just trust that inner guidance and you trust the path, it takes you where you need to. So I started trying these different forms of meditation in Buddhism. And one of them took me to this amazing group called the Healing Circle that was at the Shambhala Center in Chelsea, New York. And this is the Tibetan form of Buddhism. And it's a support group for people that are going through any kind of healing, you know, whether it's remission from disease or heartbreak, you know. And so I'm at this support group and they're passing the mic around, and I've never been to a support group in my life. So I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And the mic gets to me and I decided to do something I've never done publicly, which was to be completely vulnerable and honest. So I just opened my heart and I told them everything that was going on. And a miracle happened, which was that I noticed that people came close. And not just that, but me being vulnerable opened up a space for each person after me to do the same. And I realized that, oh my gosh, I've been wrong. Like I was in my late 30s at the time. And it's like, I always thought, and not just as a performer, but just as a woman and in my life, that if I showed up vulnerably, I would be rejected. And yet it was the exact opposite. So what I didn't realize was in that healing circle was actually the seed planted for the work I do now, which is based on the ZenRed method, and it's called powerful presence. And so that
is such an amazing story. And when you talk about meditation then, and you bring this meditation to other people, what are some of the techniques that you focus on?
Yeah, so meditation is really just an embodiment exercise, because meditation is not for everybody. Some people literally can't be in their bodies like that. It's too overwhelming. And so really what the purpose of for a powerful presence, which is you knowing you are okay where you are. It's really that ability to light up a room and to be able to create the impact you want and change the world. And so for each person, that kind of embodiment is going to be different. So what I love to do with my clients is give them different tools that they can use that feel safe. It feels safe for them to be in their body and to be able to connect to their power, because your power is not outside of you, right? It's not in what you wear. It's not in what you own. It's inside. And so that ability to really create impact comes from you connecting to your power. And so that comes from embodiment exercises, and meditation can be one of those, but I like to think of them more as silence practices. What are practices that bring you into your body so you can drown out all the noise, all the toxicity, all of the messages, and then be able to say, wait, I can trust what's happening inside because this is where my power is.
Well, as an attorney, I would certainly like to drown out a lot of the toxicity that occurs during litigation. So I would, I really think that this method, could be helpful. Kenya, did you have any thoughts or questions?
Yeah, Nikol, what are some of the misconceptions about meditation, would you say?
Oh, well, one, that it's for everybody. I think that's really unhelpful. Like a one size fits all is not helpful for anybody, right? So I think when it turns into something that's forced on people, it's not, because especially if somebody has experienced trauma, being inside their bodies with all of that's going on is not going to feel safe. And so it can have the exact opposite effect of the person saying, I'm never going to get on the cushion. I'm never going to close my eyes. It's not safe to be inside my body. So wow. I think that that's probably the most important thing, is that it's not for everybody. The other thing around meditation, I think, is that the common misconception is that it actually stops your thoughts. Like people have this idea that there's like this switch that goes off. What it does is it allows you to create more space in between your thoughts and to recognize that you are not your thoughts. The problem comes when we identify with the thought that comes up, and it might frighten us or scare us. And so we think, I am that, right? I am bad. No, you just have a part of you that's coming up and speaking. And so I think that's a really important thing too, is to recognize meditation is about slowing down. It's really about self-discovery, but it's not about shutting off your brain, because your brain, like all your other organs, has a function. And one of those is to create thoughts.
That's true. So Nikol, in your bio here, it says your clients learn to reframe how they think, feel, and then act from a place of power, and which I think is really important. And I think your story gives you credibility, shows that you were able to figure all this out and do it yourself, and you can help other people do it now. How do you know when you're coming from a place of power?
Yeah. So I feel like this comes back to the inner reference versus outer reference. It's like, if I'm going to use the example of maybe being on stage, if somebody is giving a talk or a presentation or an interview here with iHeartRadio, it's a question of, where are you? Like, are you connected down in your body? Can you feel your feet on the floor? Can you feel your seat in the chair? How are the words flowing out of your mouth? Do you feel like you can express yourself? Do you feel like you can kind of, if there was a flub, that it's like, all right, I can keep going. So, it's that you are trusting yourself, as opposed to completely placing all of your attention on, is it okay? Do they like me? Did I say it right? It's all outward referenced, as opposed to, I'm okay. I know I'm okay. And that it's almost like a flame that's burning inside, and that becomes the fuel, as opposed to what other people are saying and thinking of you.
That's really a great comment. I do want to say, for the purposes of transparency, that I tried meditating every day for about a year, and it did nothing for me. And it's not that how can I explain this? I'm not sure that I was doing anything wrong. I mean, I was sitting, and then I was focusing on a mantra and just trying to quiet my brain. And I got to the point where, believe it or not, my brain was occasionally pretty quiet, but I didn't really see the payoff in my outside life. And so I, being a very time conscious person, I just kind of said, well, yeah, I'm doing this, but I'm not really seeing what the benefits are. So, I'm glad that you said that it maybe is not for everybody, because I feel like I gave it a real try, and I didn't see the benefits.
Yeah, I think you're the first person who's ever said that. So congratulations.
Yeah.
No, I've heard that from
Congratulations, Nikol.
others. And I appreciate that, because at the end of the day, this is why I say it's more about an embodiment practice. And so then it becomes about what works for you, right? That takes you out of the comparison, that takes you out of the outer reference. And I'm sure you might have other things like moving, like running or exercise, or maybe something else. Reading, a walk outside in nature, looking at great art. I don't know, but it's you're the only one that's in your body, and only you know when you feel better after. And so it's like, do you feel the transformation? For me personally, when I found meditation, it changed my life. That's me. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a complete transformation and benefit for me. So I was like, I'm doing this every day, but that's not everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of felt like I was a weirdo because I wasn't improving.
Well, we won't say anything about that, but
Or to Nicole's point, you could be just doing it in another way. Like, I agree with Richard. I have a very hard time trying to meditate and concentrate on anything. However, Nikol, you made a good point. I ran the New York City Marathon this past weekend, and there were times during my
Congratulations.
Yeah, way to go, Kenya.
Gosh,
Thank
wow.
you. To your point, there were times where I was running where I wasn't thinking about anything. Like my mind was still, and I was just focused on that one thing. And I'm like, I remember I'm stopping. I'm like, oh my God, I think I might be meditating. It was weird. I had that thought, right? But I was doing it long enough to like detach myself from all the other millions of thoughts I typically have. But yeah, I think exercise, I find that I don't think about a million things. And maybe that's my form of meditation, right? I need to move. And you know, it happens with golf. I don't golf very well, but like that's the only time where I don't think about a million other things. And maybe that's just a form of movement that my body likes, where it's able to detach itself from all the millions of thoughts.
Yeah. And I feel like it's you just recognizing what is it that brings me into harmony and balance, right? As opposed to it's all the brain, but that it's the brain and the body. So in golf, you've got both, right? Like your brain has to be working to be able to hit the ball and the swing and all of the numbers that are associated. But there's more harmony within your being. So it's like, that's what a powerful presence is. And it's so unique and individual to each person. So the ZenRed method is much more about a process of discovery so that you can discover what that is for you, take you out of what works for other people. And that you're like, no, I can stand in my truth, that this affirms my life. This connects me to my power, and I trust that over anything else.
Well, Nikol, that is a wonderful message. And we have to move on to our next segment. But before we do, I'd like you to tell our audience where they can find you and how they can learn more about your practice.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So you can find me at my website, NikolRogers.com. And for those listening, it's a crazy spelling. It's NikolRegers.com. I'm on Instagram, Nikol_Rogers. And please reach out, DM me, and let me know any questions that you've got from anything I've spoken about today. And thank you so much to both of you and everyone here, and Kenya, for your fantastic questions. It's been an honor to be here.
Well, thank you very much. And I feel calmer already and ready to start the next segment of Passage to Profit. We'll be back right after this. Well, welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit. And we've had some really fantastic guests this evening, Marci Hopkins and Nikol Rogers, both with very informative and discussions. And we've certainly enjoyed having them so far. Now, however, it is time to move to power moves. So, Kenya, what is our power move segment for this evening?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Cameo. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cameo, but it is a celebrity shout out app. So celebrities get an opportunity to get paid to give a shout out to anybody you want. The going rate's anywhere from $1,200 a shout out down to maybe a few $100s. But there's a lot of celebrities who are making a lot of money doing this. And Cameo recently announced that they are going to be acquiring Represent, which is a platform that's going to allow them to now combine the shout outs with being able to sell merch, which is going to be more profitable and another revenue stream. So the technology is going to be able to help them also create opportunities for fundraising and charitable donations. So it's very cool. It's backed by Jennifer Lopez is someone who's on Cameo, Ed Sheeran, Kendall Jenner. So if you're looking for a shout out, you can check out Cameo and now Represent, and you're going to be able to connect with them, buy merch, and it's going to be this whole new celebrity experience. So shout out to Cameo.
All right, Kenya, are you on shout out or Cameo?
I am not. No one wants to pay me to shout out anything.
Well, you should be. If you go on, we'll pay you. And Elizabeth, what about Fireside?
Well, I'm going to say a little bit about Fireside, but I want to talk about a person in the community who recently passed as well. So Jack Killian was an incredible man in the entrepreneurial community in northern New Jersey. He had been very successful in a number of different ventures. He had a horse farm. He started Country Music Magazine. He just did a whole lot of things with his life, and he was still helping entrepreneurs. I don't know how old he was, but he was older than we are. So, but he was still helping entrepreneurs, and he had a lot of people that really cared about him and enjoyed his positive energy. And actually, when I started Fireside, he did a video with me, and he was so supportive and so positive. It's really hard.
Yeah, Jack was he was an amazing entrepreneur. Very he was a guest on our show, of course. He was one of our first guests, and he was known for being a consummate networker. And he wrote a book on networking, which is sort of become a Bible here in New Jersey. Right. And so he really believed in the value of relationships in business. And there's a breakfast I'm going to. He passed away on November 5th, 2021. There's a breakfast I'm going to that his son is having. And he said, bring your business cards because Dad would have wanted you to network. So it's a big loss to the entrepreneurial community in New Jersey. And thank you, Jack, for everything. I know you went up and not down. That's right. So now, without further ado, let's move on to something a little happier. So Anya Skaya, is it Anna Skaya? Is that right? Okay. I got my tongue twisted. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Anna Skaya has Basepaws, which I think is so cool. I'm definitely going to use it. Find out about your cat. So please, Anna, tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, I want to start with mental health because we've been talking about mental health today. And guess what? Your pets are a huge part of your mental health if you have a pet. We've seen that in COVID. We've seen that before COVID, but if you happen to have a pet while you were dealing with the last 2 years, man, I'm sure it helped. So alongside things like meditation, there are furry creatures in our homes that sleep on our beds and play with their kids and sometimes eat our food, and they really make our lives better. And that's what Basepaws is all about. We are an animal health company. Companion animals, so cats and dogs. And what we do is we try to find testing ways to make their lives better through understanding them and testing them. So your cat can't talk. You might think you know what your dog is thinking, but you probably don't. What are some ways that you can really, really understand a bit more about your pet so you can make their lives better? Well, if you have a cat, what are the things that you do? You guys have a cat, so I'm sure you peek into their litter box to make sure Three cats. Oh,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about this. I want to know their names. But how do you know if they're healthy? So you're going to peek into the litter box, hold your nose, and you're going to make sure that everything in there is okay. You're going to see to make sure they're eating well, they're drinking well, but that's really about it. What Basepaws has developed is additional tools for your toolbox as what we call a cat parent. And those tools are tests. The first test that we've developed is a DNA test. We are the world's first DNA test for cats. You've heard of 23andMe. Now you're listening about 23andMeow. So we developed about 3 years ago, we developed an in-home DNA test for your cat called Basepaws. We launched in 2019 on a show that you're probably familiar with called Shark Tank. We did really, really well, and I don't want to spoil it for you. So if you haven't seen the episode, please take a look. If you're a cat parent, you would love it. There's a cat that doesn't behave. It's really great. We launched this cool new product that every cat owner absolutely needs, because I want to hear about your cats. I am pretty sure they were rescue cats, or did you guys purchase really expensive ones?
No, they're all 3 rescue cats.
Awesome. Yeah. So guess what? You have these 3 rescue cats in your home. They support your mental health. They make your lives better. You love them. Most likely you don't know anything about them because they came from a shelter. So like for ourselves, if we are an adopted person, wouldn't you be so curious about your own genetics? If you're an adopted pet, as a pet parent, it's really something you should do. So it's an amazing product. If you've done your own 23andMe or Ancestry.com, you know exactly how it works. You don't need to get your cat to spit into a test tube. It's a much simpler process. And then, you know, in a few weeks, you get to know a lot about them. We all understand how genetics works, right? So there's different parts of the world where our ancestors came from. It's called our ancestry. 23andMe or Ancestry.com can trace it. So you know you're 45% Irish and you're 75% Jewish, and there's all these amazing things you can learn about yourself. And if you haven't done 23andMe, it is gifting season. All these kits are on sale. I highly recommend checking it out because it just opens up this window into yourself you didn't know about. Same thing with our pets, but I would argue that it's way more important to know more about their genetic health. So these are markers for disease for yourself and your pet, and it is even more important than ancestry. That's what we do. We create these products. We have a product for cats. We have a product that's actually even focused on dental health, things like microbiome testing. All of these are ways for you as a cat owner, cat parent, to really understand your pets way beyond walking around the house with a magnifying glass, trying to see if they're eating and drinking correctly. These tools, you know, a few years ago, if you guys remember,
I just want to interrupt you and say, around our house,
yes,
there's no doubt that our cats are eating correctly because
Eating
they're
constantly.
huge, right? So,
so
even
this
the
is the
kitten
part
we
of the
rescued
program.
a couple of months ago has gotten too large to fit through the spindles in our staircase. So
well, that's what happens with rescue cats. They're starving when you get them, so they just want to eat them.
This is the part of the show where I need to ask you about your cats, and I'm definitely going to tell you about mine. So you guys go first.
Elizabeth.
Well, we have 3 cats. We have a Calico, who just loves Richard. She's been the boss of the house for a long time. She's getting really old and she's having some problems. And then we have a gray tabby who is about 9 years old. He's my cat, and he's really sweet. And then we have a kitten.
He's a fraidy cat. If you ever,
no, not. I mean, that's the thing about cats. That's what I was going to ask you. You can go up and pet him one time, and then you go up to him the next time and he takes off. It's a cat trait. And then our 3rd cat was a rescue cat that came up from Georgia in the US up to New Jersey. And we got her from a rescue group. And she's what they call a cream colored tabby. So she's not a golden tabby. It's really pretty color. She's almost pink. And she's got a very funny body shape too. So I would like to get her tested because she's really unusual looking. So
So, that's the thing about this science. It's absolutely fascinating. Years ago, it would have cost thousands of dollars to do these tests. I'll give a quick example. So when Steve Jobs was diagnosed with cancer, he did a test that is very similar to what Basepaws creates. He's paid like $5,500 for that test. Fast forward 7 or 8 years later, and this test costs $100. So, speaking of which,
Is that a tortie?
This is my cat Stormy. I said I was going to talk about my cats. There you go. She's a tortoiseshell. She's called a diluted tortoiseshell. She's a genetically healthy kitty, as far as we know.
For our radio listeners, Tortie just ran across the screen here, so jumped into
Perfect timing.
Nicole's arms.
I apologize.
Jumped into Anna's arms.
I jumped into Anna.
Timing.
Yeah.
Oh, there she is. So she's gray and white and yellow, right?
What I wanted to say is that it is just so much more affordable now to do these types of tests, and for our pets. They have never been more important as they are now. And by the way, as consumers, we're definitely spending more money on our pets than we ever have before.
Well, I can vouch for that. So
right.
Tanya, do you have any questions?
I do. I'm just curious. So you don't have anything for dogs right now. It's pretty much cats, right?
It's coming. It is coming soon.
Okay. And then what is the reporting like? So you test your cat. Like what type of data specifically shows up on like a report? Sure.
So the most important data is we look at about 120 different health markers and diseases. So we're all familiar, for example, with the BRCA1 gene, right? This is a gene that codes for breast cancer. Similar type of genes can be found in our report for our cats. So everything from knowing the blood type of your cat to understanding what kidney disease markers we could have, to understanding health markers that are focused on your heart, which, by the way, for big cats, Richard, if you guys have a big cat, their heart is probably working overtime, and we really need to be careful about what markers are in their genetics. There's about 100 of those. So if you have a cat that has a positive marker, your relationship with your pet and with your vet radically changes. And you probably can prolong its life by a few years by just really understanding what that marker codes for.
That's amazing.
It is.
So where can we purchase Basepaws? Is it an online product or?
Absolutely. We're on Instagram, Basepaws. We're on basepaws.com. And we are in gifting season, which is like the best time to be purchasing these types of gifts. If you have a cat person in your life, most likely they don't know as much about their cat as they really can and should. So the test is really being sold at its lowest price of the year right now. Check out basepaws.com and find us. And also you can find us on Amazon. And Black Friday is coming up.
All of our cats have stockings for the holidays. So
Yes.
we can
Put it in their stocking.
We can put it in
We're all
their
getting
stocking.
tested.
I
Yes.
love it.
So anyway, we have to end the segment right now, but that was great. I'm excited about this.
Tell all your cat people.
Yes.
We will.
So listeners, you're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart on WOR 710, the voice of New York. And we will be right back after this message. Welcome back, listeners, to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Our special guest this evening was Marci Hopkins of Wake Up with Marci. And we had just a fabulous show. We have one more presenter that you do not want to miss. But if you did miss anything, it'll be on our podcast tomorrow on all the major podcast stations. Also our YouTube channel, because we have, as I've said this many times before, it's always true. We have the best looking people that come on the show. We're not talking about ourselves. We're talking about everybody else.
Like a way to compliment us. I don't know.
No, but anyway, this last person, Dr. Ramses Alcaide, I am so excited to hear this. This is so cool. If you want to have more control over your environment with your brain, what they've done is just amazing. So please, Dr. Ramses, tell us all about it.
Hey, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, so I work at a company called Neurable, and what we do is we make brain-computer interfaces, and that's just a really fancy way of saying that we develop technology that allows you to use your brain to interface with other devices. For example, you can use it to control, in my case, whenever I'm doing talks, I actually did a TEDx last week, I was actually controlling the slide deck using my brain activity. Or you can use it to mute or unmute your Zoom calls. On top of that, having this type of technology that enables you to understand brain data, specifically if it's in devices that are everyday, like headphones or earbuds, enables you to start understanding brain data over long periods of time. And so there's a lot of great science questions and health questions that we can answer from that. For example, understanding the progression of Alzheimer's or how the brain changes because of ALS. And so really brain computer interfaces have a very broad approach in how they can be used. But at the end of the day, it's really a way to empower people to have more control of not only knowing their own cognitive health, but also the technology they're using.
That's really fantastic. So the question that I am interested in as an intellectual property lawyer is how does the interface actually work? So whenever I've seen pictures of the human brain, and lots of times it's been illustrations, but there's these patterns and these waves that are taking place. And so how do you create a device that senses those, through the skin, through the bone, and how then do you correlate those to different things?
Yeah, absolutely. So your brain is this incredible machine that as you think of things or do actions in the world, it creates electrical activations. And these electrical activations are actually so large that as long as you have sensors on the surface of your skin, you're able to pick up those changes in electrical activity. And so what we have, at least what we work with here in our laboratory, is we have these sensors that go around your ear. And so essentially they look like a pair of everyday headphones, or you can actually use in-ear devices that look like earbuds. And then they record your brain activity, send that data to a small little system that we have that enables us essentially to interpret your brain data with our signal processing. So our main kind of secret sauce here at the company is that we have developed software that enables us to interpret your brain activity at a greater fidelity. So we interpret it, and then from there, we're able to have you actually interface with different devices. And what you saw earlier, that was actually my dog. So you saw his little snout pop up.
So then is there an AI component to this? Is, across a population, are people's brain waves for, say, changing slides pretty much the same, or does it have to learn the neurology of each individual person?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So what's really interesting is obviously everyone's brain is different from person to person, but evolutionarily, our brain has been designed in ways where there's optimized circuitry, right? So for example, your eyes connect through your optic nerve to, different visual centers of your brain. And that pathway already exists as you're going through development. And so because these optimized pathways already exist, it enables us to essentially develop technology that can generalize across multiple people, which is really great because our dream as a company is how can we create an everyday brain-computer interface? Something as simple as putting on a pair of headphones or earbuds, but then they enable you to seamlessly, authenticate your devices, control them, also monitor your own mental health in a way that doesn't look weird, like these giant systems that you've probably seen in like sci-fi movies or without using prongs or any of that stuff that looks scary. So, or without using surgery, right? Nobody wants to get their brain cracked open right now.
All right, one more question, and I'll let others ask. So when you're saying switch using your brain to activate the slides at a TEDx talk, are you thinking change slide? Is that what you're thinking, or is something else going on? So what is the process that you're using to activate that?
Yeah, so there's numerous ways of doing it, but essentially when I volitionally want to change there's a small activation that we can pick up around the ear. And from that, we essentially enable a command to happen from it. It's a very abstract process. It can be done differently on each individual. But yeah, it's essentially just a very simple want, and it happens. And that's only because we've designed these algorithms to understand user intent. Now, they're not reading your thoughts. That's not something that's viable. Like, that's a over exaggeration that a lot of people believe, because none of this is invasive. It doesn't use surgery. But what we can do is read high level changes in electrical activity and then use those to create actions.
So I just want to point out here that Dr. Ramses Alcaide is a neuroscientist. So he really knows what he's talking about, and he's really dumbing it down for the rest of us. I'm sure he could get into technical specifics that none of us would understand. And he's taking pre-orders.
A 1 hour lecture on event-related potentials and other types of brain signals that you can pick up. So we'll talk about that another day.
Yeah, exactly.
So, consuming large quantities of alcohol affect your ability to use these devices?
They do, yes. That's another 1 hour lecture.
Yeah. But I want to point out before we go, I mean, I think we have a little more time to ask him some questions because I want to hear from Kenya too, but you can't buy these yet, but are you taking pre-orders on your website? I went to your website and saw that because I think these are really fascinating. But you had an Indiegogo campaign that funded in 30 minutes. Like, seriously? That is amazing. And it shows there's a ton of interest in this technology for people.
Yeah, I think that the main reason that interest happened, why it went so fast, is because we're really hitting on pain points that people have. Right? Individuals, especially right now, are working from home more than ever, right? They're feeling burnt out. There's a lot of this exhaustion that's happening. People don't really know when to take breaks that make them feel happy. I mean, there's two ways to live your day, right? You wake up, you put in your 8 hours and you feel exhausted and you hate your job. The other aspect is you put in your 8 hours, you feel inspired and motivated by all that you accomplished, and you feel really happy about yourself. And so what if we could give somebody a tool that could enable them to understand their own cognitive health and help them essentially understand when to take breaks that enable them to enter focus and maintain that focus with greater clarity and more, empowerment. And that really resonated with people, right? Brain-computer interfaces aren't these scary things that are going to take over the world. That's just, that's where people were overhyping AI like 5 years ago, thinking that that's what was going to happen, right? And now what it does is correct your text, right? Brain-computer interfaces are in the same space. There's a lot of really valuable applications for these types of technologies. And that's why I believe we sold out so quickly on our Indiegogo. And our main goal isn't actually to sell headsets. We're planning to bring this technology to as many headphone devices as possible. We want people to eventually go to their favorite web store and just, buy their Bose headphones or their Apple Beats or, AirPods, and all those devices just like, for example, you have a Fitbit or you have a wrist watch that sees you move around the day and tracks your steps. Well, what about something that could track your mental health, right? And so providing these everyday values for brain-computer interfaces is what we're really focused on doing.
Kenya.
I feel like it's Christmas Day. I mean, if I wasn't in radio, I'd be doing what you do in terms of being a neuroscientist, because I think all this is super fascinating, and I'm big on brain health. I'm a fitness instructor, so in my classes, I implement some of these, brain training things, because the brain and the body work synonymously together, and what's going on with your brain is also an indication of what's going on with your body. So I had an MRI recently based on something you had said about just like us kind of being in quarantine and working from home for the last 18 months. And I was concerned cognitively what was going on with me, and just liking information and data. I'm like, I'm getting an MRI. I want to know, kind of where my mental health or my mental state is in terms of my cognitive ability. What's the difference between what you're doing when someone gets an MRI versus like someone who might use your technology to kind of evaluate their brain health?
Yeah, absolutely. So an MRI is a giant machine that, basically uses magnets to understand how different changes in your electrical activity and blood flow essentially change within the system. The systems that we're using, and I can actually just show you one real quick. They have these soft electrodes around the ear cups.
So can you
collect
describe?
something called?
He's describing it.
Yeah, it's basically a pair of headphones that has these soft meshes around the ear cup. And these meshes essentially pick up the data from around your ear. It's called electroencephalography. And this device isn't a giant magnetic, system that you put around your head that you have to go into a specialty clinic with. This is just a pair of headphones, right? Essentially, this is just a pair of Bose headphones. And so you would use them for your normal workday. You'd use them as an everyday tool. They can't give you the same level of clarity of data as something like an MRI can, but they give you more longitudinal information. And that long-term collection of your data essentially enables you to be more empowered and know more about yourself. Similar to how Anna was talking about getting DNA testing for your cat. What if you could get long-term data from your brain? That's the last thing we're not tracking, right? You have heart trackers, you have movement trackers, but what if you could track your mental health? And that's really some of the key value that we're bringing with this technology.
So is there like sounds, or is like what is the person experiencing when they put the headset on?
Nothing. It's just they put it on, and for most people, they might just want to use it to listen to music, right? But then what we can do is we're passively recording their brain data, and if they've chosen to do so, we can understand when they're focused and automatically turn on do not disturb mode, for example, on their computer, or noise cancellation on automatically. And then whenever they're getting distracted, we're able to play a small audio tone to get them back into focus. And then at the end of their day, they can look at their results and say, wow, I was really focused this last hour, but actually when my kids ran behind me, there was this, I got significantly distracted and actually threw me off. So maybe I need to set some time aside and let my kids know, hey, I need this hour for work, right? This is how much this impacted my work. And yeah, it gives you the ability to control the volume and a whole bunch of really cool stuff as well too, like slide control and mute. But the real value isn't like clicking on things with your brain. The real value is giving somebody, empowerment of their own lives and their own mental health.
I wonder if we
Wow.
could use that to put our crabby hats on so we'd know not to talk to each other.
I'm going to start bringing mine to the show, just so I'm giving you fair warning now.
I know you're always crabby.
No, I was going to put it on you. So anyway,
I guess this is fascinating. This is awesome. I mean, this show is really about innovation, and this is so innovative. Everything here is innovative, and just such an interesting show today. Unfortunately, it's almost time to go. We're going to do a wrap up after this break and let you know everybody's websites and a little bit about what we talked about. If you missed any of the show, catch the podcast, but definitely look at us on YouTube, because there were some great things that happened you could only see on YouTube, right? So animals. Anyway, listeners, we will be right back. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart on WOR 710, the voice of New York.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Passage to Profit. What an amazing show tonight. I think it's just been so much fun, and we've learned so many different things.
It feels like we've really dug into mind health and health in general a lot. Like it's amazing the things people are finding out. So to recap, we had Marci Hopkins, Wake Up with Marci. She has a TV show. It's at 10 a.m. Saturdays. It's in New York right now, but it's going to go national pretty soon, we hope. And it's just stories of people overcoming difficult situations in their lives and stories filled with hope. And her website is wakeupwithmarci, MARCI.com.
Yes, during the taping of this, I said, wake up for Marci, and everybody laughed.
Yes, we did. And then we had Nikol Rogers. I mean, Nicole's story will just blow you away. You really, if you missed any of it, you have to listen to this. You really need to go check her out. Her website is NikolRogers.com. She helps people live their lives from a place of their own power instead of getting buffeted by outside forces. She teaches you how to do that. It's amazing.
Yeah, and her method is really cutting edge, because really there's a lot out there about meditation, but this is a very personalized approach, and it's not limiting the universe of meditation practices to just one kind of thing. So
right. And then we had Anna Skaya with Basepaws, BASEPAWS.com, spelled just like it sounds. So you can find out all sorts of information about your pet that helps you make better health decisions for them. And also like just gives you some background on them. So genetic information, et cetera.
I would be very interested in hearing about cat reunions through DNA profile. So I hope that she can come back and
that's not happening.
And introduce two cats who met each other after 7 years.
Yeah, what do you think their first reaction is going to be? You've lived with cats with me for years. Anyway, and then we had Dr. Ramses Alcaide, Neurable, neurabl.com. So he is a neuroscientist, and he has developed these brain machine interfaces that really help you monitor your mental health and also help you do cool stuff like flip slides during a presentation stuff. But, they're really popular. It's the next wave of health, I think, innovation.
Yeah.
Right.
He's always the smartest guy in the room for sure.
Yeah. So you can pre-order his product at neurabl.com, and it'll be widespread pretty soon. Where, you're catching it early by hearing it on the show. So you'll be way ahead of everybody because you'll be one of the first to have it.
That's right. I'd like one that helps me control my mouth. But anyway, Kenya.
And then Kenya Gipson. So Kenya Gipson contributed too. So Kenya Gipson with a P at iHeartMedia.com.
Absolutely. And Kenya, any final words for our audience before we sign off?
Yeah, I always try to find the common thread, and I'm actually going to borrow the word transformation from Nikol's title here, right? Because I think that was the theme. We talked to Wake Up with Marci about helping people transform their lives through hope and stories. And then we spoke to Nikol, who's helping people transform their lives by helping them tap into their power. And then we have Basepaws, right, where we're helping, pets get healthier through innovation and data. And then Dr. Ramses, who's doing incredible things with Neurable and helping people improve their cognitive health and well-being through information. So transformation and data are the name of the game today.
Well, that was just breathtaking, Kenya. How you pulled that all together just is...
she sounds way smarter than we do.
I just scribbled it all down on a piece of paper.
No, that was an excellent summary, Kenya.
Thanks so much for that. And unfortunately, we do have to sign off. And stay with us. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Passage to Profit. And keep those cards and letters and texts and emails coming in.
Especially for Noah.
And speaking of Noah, I'd like to thank our producer, Noah Fleischman. I'd like to thank our program coordinator, Alicia Morrissey. I'd like to thank our video editor, Chatterboss, and the whole iHeart team. So this is Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart signing off on Passage to Profit, iHeartRadio, WOR 710, the voice of New York.
It's a wrap.